So far, you have learned how to use some of the core components in React Native, such as View, Text, and ScrollView. And now you're ready to learn a little more about writing cleaner code in React Native. Some of the component code I've written for the Little Lemon app is actually quite hard to read. I can note the component it's rendering, but it's cluttered by all these styles. It's quite hard to understand what's really going on. And here's where the StyleSheet API is very useful. The React Native StyleSheet API is quite similar to CSS style sheets. It helps you move all the styling outside and add it to the style sheet instead of using it within the render method of a component. But how does that help? By moving the styles away from the render method, I'm making the code easier to understand. Another benefit is that I can use descriptive names for each of the styles, which makes it easier to add meaning to these low-level components. So, let's go ahead and explore how to use the StyleSheet API to make code cleaner and more readable. First, I have to import the style sheet from React Native. Within the same file, I'm going to create a constant that I'll call menuStyles, since I'm writing styles for the menu. It's easiest to use a descriptive name. Using the StyleSheet API, I'm going to call .create, because this is where the styles sheet will be created, and it will store all the styles I add into it within the menuStyles object. The first thing I'll address is the style that I've used for the view here. So I take the flex.075 out and I create a new style name that I name Container, because this is going to be the view container for the entire ScrollView menu. And I'm going to add the view style here while I remove it where it was, along with the extra curly braces. In place of it now is the menuStyles object I just created. And the container property is auto-suggested because the IDE is smart enough to recognize it. And that's it. I basically took away a bunch of style and added it to the StyleSheet object that I've plugged in here. Let's do the same with the next style. I'm going to call the ScrollView style the innerContainer. I paste all the ScrollView styles right here in the innerContainer. And I'm going to do the same again. I get rid of all the styles from here where the component is rendered. I use the menuStyles object again, and this time I look for the innerContainer property. Can you see how this code is cleaner already? Let's go ahead and do the same with some of the other styles for the text component. I take all this styling out, the color, font size, and flex wrap. I paste it into a property I name headerText, because that's what's going to display the view menu. And now I repeat the same steps. I look for the menuStyles object and for the headerText property. And there you go. Just one last item to extract the style from, and the component will be complete. I'm going to name this one itemText, because it's going to display the text for each item. I get rid of the extra curly braces and all the styles. And then I use menuStyles.itemText, and that's it. Now the component is all cleaned up. It's now much shorter and easier to read because it doesn't have any styles in it. And I've used descriptive and easy to understand names for each of the styles. Now, I know there's a view, and within the view there is a scroll view with some properties. And I have two text components. One which displays the header text called view menu, and another that will display the item text for each menu item. Just by reading this code, I understand what the component is really doing, and I can always scroll down to look at the styles, and they're all together. If I have to make changes to the styles, I'll come here to make the changes which will reflect within the component. Using the StyleSheet API just makes the code easier to read, doesn't it? Now, let's go ahead and clean up all the other components like the Little Lemon header and the app. It's much cleaner when you put all of your styles together in a style sheet. Here is the Little Lemon header component all cleaned up. I have a container style, a header text style, and an inner text style. The component looks much cleaner. And here you can see all of the styles collected in the StyleSheet API. I used the same approach with the app component, which looks a lot shorter and cleaner now. It just has a view, and it calls the Little Lemon header and the menu items component, while the style is right here. Make sure to use the same approach with StyleSheet API anytime you write React Native components. Not only does it keep your code cleaner, it also keeps the styles closer to the component. In this video, you learned how to use the StyleSheet API to store styles so that your code is cleaner and more readable.